Unit 5, Brian Goes Skiing. It was a warm winter day. The sun was shining. There was fresh snow on the slopes, and it was the weekend. Brian just had to go skiing. The young man had lived in Banff for more than 5 years, where he worked at one of the finer hotels. But despite his proximity to some of the finest ski resorts in the world, he rarely had time to take advantage of it. The sun was high atop the mountains already when he pulled into the parking lot at Sunshine Village Ski Resort. He parked his car and then got on the gondola for the ride up to the skiing area. The view from the gondola was breathtaking. Fresh snow and frost on the mountain pines sparkled in the sunlight. A lone white-tailed deer on the cut line beneath him scraped away at the snow with his hooves, foraging for dormant grass to eat. It was a perfect day for skiing. At the top, he went to the ski rental shop, which had 2 sets of skis leaning against the outside of it. There he picked up the gear he needed: skis, ski boots, and poles. He didn't have to pay, because hotel employees where he worked received free rentals, probably in exchange for sending customers their way. It was a perk of his job he wished he could take more advantage of. He slipped the stiff ski boots on and fastened the buckles. They were very snug, but he liked them that way. He didn't want his feet to be able to wiggle around inside the boots. With boots on, he laid the skis flat. He stuck the toe of the left boot into the binding and stepped down hard, so that the back of the binding would lock into place. He repeated the procedure with the right foot. With poles in hand, he was ready to roll. He pushed himself over the flat ground with his poles to the chairlift and got in line. The line moved quickly as the chairs whisked people up the mountain 2 by 2. When it was his turn to get on, he stepped sideways into the chair's path and sat as the bench scooped underneath him. Away he went. From his vantage point, high above the snowy slopes, he could see all the ski runs and the little specks that were skiers. The cold mountain wind was much cooler up there, and an ice mustache soon formed on his upper lip. But he didn't mind, as his attention was on the skiers below, who seemed to be having so much fun. The adrenaline in his blood probably helped to fight off the cold, too. The chair neared the summit, and Brian prepared to get off. As his skis touched the ground, he stood up and used his hand to push himself away from the chair. He glided down the ramp, and the chairlift made a loop, then headed back down the mountain to pick up more waiting skiers. Brian skated over to his favorite run called the Waterfall. It was one of the most difficult runs on the mountain, even though it wasn't that long. It was extremely steep, covered in moguls, and, as if that wasn't enough, it was littered with small pine trees. But Brian was an accomplished skier, and somewhat of a thrill-seeker. You certainly wouldn't find him on the bunny slope. On the edge of the run, he stopped to look down the slope and decided what his route would be. Once committed, the moguls wouldn't allow him much opportunity to change course without risking a wipeout, and on such a steep incline, a wipeout could be dangerous. So he thought carefully and weighed his options. Then Brian pointed his skis downhill, planted his poles firmly into the snow, and pushed off. He zigzagged down the mountain and through the moguls as if he were a pro. He was in his glory at last.